CIA officials discovered a statue of Lord Shiva, and after carbon dating, it was found to be approximately 28,000 years old. In our previous video, we discussed evidence of ancient Indian civilization in the Grand Canyon, and how American government is trying its best to hide it.
It's not because they think that they're going to try and rewrite history. It's because the technology used to artificially age these artifacts is being used to make our populace think our government is working against you to hide stuff. When all of the religious institutions and all of our foreign adversaries have been doing this for thousands of years. Don't fall for this. They can artificially age this stuff very simply.
Why is American government scared to reveal the discovery?
This is precisely why chain of custody and possession is important in these kinds of artifacts. Because you never know who had it and went where with it and put it in what box or anything, and then all of a sudden, before it was dated, it's now, oh wow, look at it, it's 10,000 years older than it should have been, or 50,000 years older than it should have been. Did it end up in someone's weird science physics lab? Oh, who knows? I mean, even if it went through the right chain of custody and hands. And I've got a much larger way of doing this, but in a very simple manner. The way it's measured is the carbon dating method and or most radioisotope decay methods. When you bombard anything with more particles will cause those decays. You can artificially age an item by bombarding it with particles. Whether you stick it in a chamber and do that with a linear accelerator or some sort of particle accelerator is a different story. I've been talking about how Tesla's system can be used to focus cosmic rays. The only reason we think carbon dating is reasonably reliable is because we think there is a general static cosmic ray flux density that's just on average generally causing a continuous decay of carbon at a constant rate. If you can change the voltage potential of large swaths of the area, it increases or decreases the cosmic ray flux density of certain areas. They can artificially age entire archaeological digs by doing this. You know why our government wants to keep it? Because the technology used to do this is still used for confidential war projects. The risk to national security, so they hide the artifact that was artificially aged, because if they talk about the artificially aged artifact, they have to explain how it was done. Never mind the fact that carbon dating is not reliable anywhere near that age. It pretty much stops after 10,000 years. So whoever is producing this content is hoping you don't know that about carbon dating. All of these woo-woo stuff that I find on the internet, you keep seeing me post stuff about, they just hope you don't know this basic stuff and they can just hawk it. We're back on the maps. Alright, today I want to show you how Athens lines up to the Great Pyramids. It's pretty cool, honestly. I want you to check out these locations. Look at the numbers specifically. I want to point something out. I think a lot of people think I'm just like going around and finding all these key spots and then remembering them and then going and like focusing only on the good spots I found. No. These recordings I'm putting out, I'm just running around on the map and just moving to whatever looks like possible points of interest, like clearings of the land, or dead spots in the growth, or discolorations on roofs. I'm really just running around. I have no aim where I'm heading to. And statistically speaking, if this was just everything was randomly wherever, a lot of things would not line up. I can almost not find things that don't line up. Interesting that I find discolorations of the roof materials, the ground, there's specifically like cracks or discoloration of certain land areas or specific points that are lining up. Very, very, very key numbers. And why would that be? Because it has to do with the types of waves that are naturally going around the Earth and how they line up with our unit system. It's not that difficult, just simple wave interference of specific waves that happen to give those kinds of divisions. Herein lies the question. Why would this make a difference? Why would you find discolorations of the land there? And I think this goes a little bit further than just electric currents in the ground, because otherwise you wouldn't find these on the roofs of the buildings. And now it could still just be lightning strikes are causing these issues, but I have found this in a lot of places. This is quite a key point here. A while ago, a couple years back, I had the realization of when I was playing around with Tesla's non-dispersive concentrated energy projector, aka death ray, a big highly electrically charged dome, and it uses basically electrostatic force to repel metallic bits at extremely high velocities. He figured out how to make it go really, really high voltage and also make it so it had a higher power output than Van de Graaff generators are usually capable of doing. But I realized, I was like, okay, well, what happens if you put the tower up? You make it really, really highly negatively charged. Obviously, the air around will start to potentially ionize, but typically you don't see that ionization from electrostatics, especially because the vacuum insulated anti-arcing bulbs allow it so that there's no arcing going off. However, that electric field still continues on. I realized that there's constantly tons of cosmic rays that are just raining down on us all the time. If you put your hand out in front of you, there will be a muon that goes through your hand every second. And that's what we've measured it to be right now. And Tesla said he was measuring these with his radiant energy collector patent a long time ago. In fact, I believe he actually discovered the positron a whole 30 years before Carl Anderson inadvertently discovered it with one of his experiments and then got a Nobel Prize for it. But Tesla talks about measuring a positively charged particle coming from the sun in about 2 or 3 years after Thomson discovered the electron, but somehow he didn't get credit for any of it because everyone thinks that it's a photoelectric effect is how it works, because even though Tesla said you can take the radiant energy collector and go either positive or negative, and photoelectric effect doesn't go both positive or negative, it only does one. But back then they didn't know what cosmic rays were. We were still discovering stuff. So there's constantly positive or negative fundamental particles raining down on us. There's some mesons that are a little bit larger ones, but nevertheless, they're all usually charged particles. I realized that if you put the charge on the dome to extremely high voltage, that would probably start to focus in cosmic rays on it of the opposite charge, because opposites attract. I realized it might not even work as the non-dispersive concentrated energy projector, because the moment you try to charge it up, it just ends up neutralizing from all of the cosmic rays coming and smashing into it. I'm going to accelerate, focus cosmic rays at it. That's pretty interesting. Now, I realize it probably won't happen much with a single one of them. I've been hammering this in my head for so long now, and I really don't know if a single one of them will do that much. Because to get really any real amount of power out from any of these cosmic rays, you have to have a very large area of the sky or the ground to be collecting these. That's a whole nother discussion, especially now that we know the ground is conductive. I realized, I was like, well, what if we could get large areas of the sky to be focused onto a tiny point, and maybe even do that through an array of these out in the land. Or now that I really fully understand his ground transmission system, you could just control the voltage potentials anywhere in the ground, anywhere you want. We could use the Earth itself as the cosmic ray focusing device. A focal lens. It's honestly basic, simple electrostatic acceleration. Basically, I realized if you take an area of the ground and you make it extremely positively charged or negatively charged, you're going to focus all the cosmic rays in the sky on that area into a tiny point. And we're talking about high energy particles, which quite literally are the basis for cosmic ray nucleosynthesis. We expend a bunch of energy to accelerate these kinds of particles in our particle accelerators to smash them together, but they're already coming in at 99.9% of the speed of light. I've always wondered, why are we spending all this electricity to accelerate particles and then smash them into each other and cause reactions? Why wouldn't we just use those up there? But because there's not enough coming down. And I've even done my own, in my physics degree, I had to go in my modern physics lab, and we measured the muons that were coming down and saw that they were only coming down one every second. We proved that cosmic rays can't be used for other things because guess what? They're only coming down so few of them at a time, and you can't do anything about it. And at the time, I accepted that. I just believed it. You know why? Why would I disagree with it? But I have since realized, if they have this system set up around the entire Earth already, they got here way ahead of me, and they got all these buildings in the right places. They got all the churches in the right places. They got all the stadiums. They got everything you can imagine. The dormitories, sports fields, everything putting all the vibrations into the ground, and those vibrations rectify into electric fields or electric currents because of the electroseismic effect. But this constant concert of waves going around in the ground and the cosmic rays being steered by these, because of course, why wouldn't they? They have to be. There's just electric fields and cosmic rays, and it's just how everything works. And we do know that there's some connection there's theories that the lightning strike that happens because cosmic ray goes ripping through and it ionizes the air, and that's what initiates the actual discharge. I just accepted that muons and all the cosmic rays are only coming down at a certain rate, because I measured it and they proved it to me that that's what the rate was. But if they got here over 100 years before me with Tesla's technology, because he definitely figured this out in like 1900, 1901 or 1902, and then they had 30 years to build all of our skyscrapers, all of our everything, everywhere around the world, even not just our stuff in the US, every major city in the world I have found this stuff in. If they got here before me and they have all the technology to literally be funneling out all the cosmic rays wherever they want, there wouldn't be a lot of cosmic rays coming down anywhere else, because they've got the system around the entire Earth already set up. They're already focusing all the cosmic rays to exactly where they want. And I mean, I can imagine they're even doing it so much to the point where they've got super tight beams of them focusing down on very key and specific areas. And they might even put buildings there, and then you have just the elevator shaft. Actually, you have a circular stairwell. That's the spiral stairwell, and you've got the beam focus to go through the center of the stairwell. So no one ever walks through this beam. It's just perfectly isolated, but it's in the middle of everything. Now, I had this idea with this when I first realized what could be done with this cosmic ray focusing system. Was just the simple one. I realized that if we use mercury, the cosmic rays smashing into that mercury will cause nucleosynthesis and or essentially the Seaborg method, where you bombard some type of material with higher energetic particles, and you either change a neutron into a proton, or you change a proton into a neutron, or you knock a proton out, or you do other various things, but you reduce the number of protons in the mercury by 1 through nuclear spallation and or bombardment of high energy particles. Well, what happens when you reduce the number of protons in an element? You change its element. And what's one less than mercury? Gold. We already know we can make golden nuclear reactors and particle accelerators with the bombardment and the Seaborg method. But I was like, wow, if you got a bunch of mercury and you can focus all these cosmic rays onto it, you might make some gold. Now, it won't make only the kind of gold that we want, because there's only one type of isotope of gold that is actually stable. The rest of them are radioactive. However, the half-life of most gold isotopes is like very, very short. It's like a couple days. So if you had a vat of this and you're focusing a bunch of cosmic rays onto it and put them as much gold as you want, the nice thing is gold dissolves into mercury. So the gold just like stays dissolved into the mercury as it's made. Basically, bring the mercury up to a very extremely high voltage. It focuses the cosmic rays onto it. It bombards it with cosmic rays. You get some gold out of it. Some of the gold in there is radioactive, some of it's stable. You just leave it for days. Whatever's left in the mercury is gold that's stable. Take what you want out of that, replace the mercury, put a new mercury in there, run that again, do this whole thing, you get more gold out. And you just wait each time for all the radioactive gold to decay back into either mercury or some stable element that you just continue this experiment with. Now, again, it wouldn't do much. It would take a very, very, very long time, according to what I measured with my experiment in my physics lab that they had us do. Was that, hey, there's only one muon coming down at a time. There's just not enough of these cosmic rays anywhere for Tesla's radiant energy system to actually work. It seems right, but it doesn't actually work because there's just not enough. But you know, I every single thing I've ever read this man write, I agree with, except for like 1 or 2 things, which were more personal opinion and culture things rather than science things. Everything I've read this man write has been like spot on, and I've been able to prove it with real modern physics. If you just got to know, you don't listen to the other people. Listen. You got to read his work. It's hard because he writes densely, but you got to listen to his work. I've ever read him lie about this stuff once, and I have read through almost every single one of his patents, and they're all on point. And I don't even know if I would have understood them if I had gotten my physics degree 20 years prior, because we discovered most of the higher end particles of the standard particle model within a few years of me just starting my degree. So I got the benefit of 100 years of physics advancements to be taught in my undergraduate degree, that I was then just able to recognize the real physics in what he was doing years before everyone else. And I mean, let's just talk about how he, his improved turbine patent literally was the Chang thermodynamic cycle that Tesla invented a whole 50 years before Dr. Chang somehow got credit for it in the 70s. It's a whole new thermodynamic cycle that improves the Brayton and Rankine cycle. Tesla invented it 50 years before Dr. Chang in 1921, but Dr. Chang got credit for it in 1970-something. 50 years he discovered this this improved and much more highly efficient thermodynamic cycle. But okay, he said he was measuring tons of cosmic rays, that he was like, there were so many of them, he was like, I can make power with this. And we could power a lot of things with this. But right now, again, I proved it in my physics degree because we went and measured the cosmic rays, and there's only one that comes down every second, and it's just not enough. You do the math, add it up, it doesn't happen anywhere. It's just not enough cosmic rays. Yeah, well, if you're already focusing them everywhere and no one else has that access to them because you've already focused them down into tight beams and key locations, of course we're not going to measure them anywhere else and they won't be usable. To put an analogy on this, is as if Tesla went off into the jungle and then he came back and said, I found this waterfall, and it is just an unimaginably tall waterfall, and there's so much water gushing from it, we could power the entire world from this thing. We just got to put turbines on it. I got to take you there, I got to show you where it is. And so we go on this journey with Tesla, and we don't go into the wilderness, and just let's just say, for the experiment's sake, let's say Tesla dies along this journey, but he tells us where to go find this waterfall. We continue on to this journey. We keep trudging through the forest. We get to the location Tesla says, and then there's no waterfall. We see the giant cliff. We see there used to be a waterfall, maybe, but there's no water. There's like literally a drip trickle coming over the waterfall. But we're just like, okay, wow, dude, why would he have sent us along this whole giant journey to only find out that there's no actual waterfall here? It's not an unimaginable amount of gushing water. So that would just assume that Tesla didn't tell anyone else about this, and that someone else with a lot more money, a lot more resources didn't go trekking through the other side of the woods or another route, or just over the woods because they had a plane or something, and they just got there first, then diverted all of the water to where they want it, and by the time we got there, the waterfall just doesn't have any. And so we just assume, oh, well, Tesla must have been lying. He didn't know what see, there's not that many coming down. He was far too ahead of himself. He really didn't understand physics, which is what they said about his wireless transmission, but really they didn't even know it goes through the ground and not the air. So of course they knew he was wrong about this, but or did the same people who literally claim his wireless system can't work, who are also using it to do these cosmic ray focusing and everything, did they also then divert all the cosmic rays first in tight beams focused around the Earth so that we couldn't go measure them or use them? Did they set up the whole world system to be able to focus these cosmic rays where they please to do them at? And then turned around and said, well, Tesla was a bozo. He didn't know what he was talking about. See, when you measure them, they're not there. I bought it, but it's a magic trick, man. You just assume that there's not other people working ahead of you, or I didn't get there first, or, I mean, I'm not even saying this is done for nefarious purposes. This is definitely for military confidentiality. I totally get national security. I got it. But still, I mean, sure, I'm going to say it's a fun ruse. Fun ruse. I see your trick. I see it. Fun ruse. But I've been working on this idea for about 5 to 10 years now, trying to find a hole in this. And every day I find something new that proves it more. Did they get there first and divert the waterfall? And then stood around like, see, there's no waterfall. Can't use it. Tesla's wrong. Is that why we got off of gold? So we can just make it?